There was a man, a strange man by any measure. He didn't lead armies, build monuments or amass great wealth. He didn't wear the robes of power or seek the approval of kings. Most of the time, you'd find him wandering barefoot through the busy streets of Athens, stopping strangers with a curious glint in his eye and a question that could unsettle the core of your soul. "Do you think you're a good person?" he might ask. Caught off guard, you'd mumble something like, "Yes, I think so." He'd tilt his head, his scruffy beard twitching, and ask, "But what does it mean to be good?" And before you knew it, the certainties you'd carried your whole life began to crumble under the weight of his questions. This was Socrates. A man uninterested in power, riches, or fame. He lived for one thing, the truth. And in his relentless search for it, Socrates changed not just how we think, but what it means to think at all. Athens was a city that loved certainty. Its people clung to their traditions, their gods, their democracy. In public squares, men argued passionately, convinced their ideas were unshakable. But Socrates had no answers to offer. He only had questions. Imagine standing in the bustling agora. The smell of fresh bread fills the air as merchants shout over the chatter of the crowd. You're going about your business when Socrates approaches, his gaze piercing, yet oddly kind. "What is justice?" he asks. Caught off guard, you reply, "Justice is following the law." He nods, almost as if agreeing. Then, with quiet intensity, he presses, "But what if the law is unjust?" You pause, the words caught in your throat. He waits. "Justice is treating others fairly," you offer. His eyes narrow, not in judgment but curiosity. But what if treating one person fairly means harming another? And just like that, the ground beneath your feet begins to shift. This was Socrates' gift, not to give you answers, but to make you question everything you thought you knew. To Socrates, the greatest tragedy wasn't ignorance. It was the refusal to question. The willingness to live life unexamined, sleepwalking through the world, never stopping to ask why. Some admired him for it. Young minds were drawn to him, eager to learn how to think critically and challenge authority. But others? They despised him. To the powerful, Socrates was dangerous. He didn't just ask questions, he exposed ignorance. Imagine being a respected leader, speaking confidently before a crowd, only to have Socrates calmly unravel your arguments, thread by thread. It wasn't just humbling, it was humiliating. The sophists, celebrity teachers who sold wisdom to the wealthy, fared no better. To Socrates, they were charlatans, more concerned with winning arguments than seeking truth. With every question, Socrates made more enemies. And then came the trial. By the time Socrates was 70, Athens had had enough of his relentless questioning. They accused him of corrupting the youth and disrespecting the gods, dragging him to court in a trial that captivated the city. The charges were a sham, and everyone knew it. But Socrates didn't defend himself the way they expected. He didn't apologize or plead for mercy. Instead, he challenged the jury with the same conviction that defined his life. He told them he wasn't corrupting the youth, he was teaching them to think. He wasn't disrespecting the gods, he was following the divine call within him to seek truth. Then, with a calm that shook the room, he declared, "The unexamined life is not worth living." The jury wasn't moved. They found him guilty and sentenced him to death. His friends, desperate to save him, devised a plan. They bribed the guards, secured an escape route, and begged him to flee. But Socrates refused. "How can I preach about justice," he asked them, "if I break the laws when they no longer suit me?" On the day of his execution, Socrates sat with his friends, discussing philosophy until the very end. He drank the poison hemlock without fear, his final moments a testament to his life's work, to question, to seek, to never stop thinking. Socrates wrote nothing. Everything we know of him comes from his student Plato, whose writings turned his life and ideas into the foundation of Western philosophy. Without Plato, Socrates might have been forgotten. But he wasn't. Socrates left behind no temples, no statues, no grand legacy of power. What he left behind was far more enduring, a way of thinking that still shapes our world. Every time you question an assumption, challenge an authority, or seek a deeper truth, you are walking in his footsteps. So now the question is yours: will you dare to ask the uncomfortable questions? Will you challenge the things you take for granted? Will you live an examined life? Because, as Socrates showed us, that's where life truly begins. This version sharpens the emotional stakes while maintaining the depth of Socrates' philosophy. It speaks directly to the audience, urging them to engage with the story and its timeless message. Let me know if you'd like further adjustments.